T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
It takes a shit, son.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
It takes a shit, son.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
It takes a shit, son.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Taste the shit, see.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Taste the shit, see.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Happy Friday, man. We got a really interesting episode, really NFL heavy. The Baltimore Ravens just signed former Broncos and Chargers running back Melvin Gordon. I'm going to be giving my thoughts and reaction to that signing. Madden released their quarterback ratings for their upcoming game this year. And like always, they were awful. We're going to talk about those ratings. Who should have been rated high? Who should have been rated a little bit low? Colin Cowherd called Justin Fields a bust. And I strongly disagree with his take. I'm going to be giving my pushback to his claims that Justin Fields is a bust. He's not going to pan out. Who's going to pan out, though, at wide receiver for Kansas City this year? And lastly, should the Arizona Cardinals trade Kyler Murray and draft Caleb Williams? Or should they opt to build around Kyler Murray and just go ahead and get rid of the Caleb Williams dreams and opt to try to build around Kyler? Before we get into it, if you haven't already, make sure that you go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us with a 5-star review. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify before the season begins. So make sure that you go ahead, leave us with a 5-star review. All you got to do is go to whichever podcasting platform that you use. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, type in the JT Sports Podcast and it should pop up and give us a 5-star review. Or you can go down to the description down below, scroll down a little bit, and there will be the links to the Apple and Spotify versions of the podcast. Melvin Gordon has signed the 1-year deal worth $3.1 million with the Baltimore Ravens. And instantly, when I saw the news of this signing on Twitter, I went to the comment section and there were people saying, why would the Ravens sign Melvin Gordon? He's up there in age. He's not really all that great. And they already are pretty loaded at running back. Well, J.K. Dobbins got placed on PUP, player unable to perform. So we don't know how long it's going to take for him to be ready to play this season. So signing Melvin Gordon makes sense for several reasons. The first one being that you was able to get him on a really cheap deal compared to other running backs out there like Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott and even Leonard Fournette probably all are going to demand more money than what Melvin Gordon just signed for. Plus, Melvin Gordon, he was pretty solid with the Denver Broncos. His problem was just being able to hold on to the football. The Baltimore Ravens, they're one of those franchises that for some reason, they know how to get the most out of guys who you may feel are out of their prime. You want a good example? Devontae Freeman. Yes, Devontae Freeman. You remember when he was snapping for the Atlanta Falcons? Well, he was on the Baltimore Ravens in 2021, and he was going ham. He had over 500 yards. He was averaging over 4 yards per carry, and he was looking really good for the Baltimore Ravens in 2021. And you got to remember that they also on the defensive side had Justin Houston who was snapping. And he's really old. The Ravens are just one of those organizations that knows how to squeeze juice and motivate older players. Melvin Gordon, I think he would be a really good addition to this Ravens offense even when J.K. Dobbins returns, because this is somebody who's going to be a good personality to have in the locker room. You got him on a cheap deal. It's only 3 years, $3.1 million. And you got to remember, another reason why this signing makes a lot of sense is due to the fact that the Ravens normally utilize 3 running backs throughout the season. Last year in 2022, they had J.K. Dobbins, Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill, who all got a significant amount of carries amongst each other. You also have in 2021, not just that they have Devontae Freeman, but they had Latavius Murray to go along with Tyson Williams. And Le'Veon Bell, they also scooped him up. The Ravens are one of those franchises that likes to have a lot of depth at running back because they normally rotate their running backs throughout the season. Or maybe a guy has to step up because somebody ahead of him had an injury. Melvin Gordon, he's going to be in the backfield with Justice Hill. You're going to have Gus Edwards, who is really underrated, averages 5 yards per carry. Then you're going to have a healthy J.K. Dobbins with Melvin Gordon. This is going to be a really good running game that the Ravens could have this season. Even though they are switching offensive coordinators, they bring in Todd Monken. He isn't somebody that's going to run the kind of run schemes that Greg Roman was cooking up, but he still is going to put an emphasis on running the football up the middle, so the Ravens should still be a really good team when it comes to running the football, even though they're going to be a little bit more pass heavy. Melvin Gordon, you're not asking him to be your RB1, you're just asking him to be your RB2 and, split snaps and carries with Gus Edwards until you can figure out the timetable for J.K. Dobbins to return. And when J.K. Dobbins returns, you're still going to be giving Melvin Gordon a little bit of work because you're just one of those teams that just does a great job at being productive and swapping out backs and getting significant production at that position. So for those of you guys who are wondering why the Ravens would sign Melvin Gordon, It's just simply for the fact that this is still somebody who can play at a productive level or at a productive level. He's up there in age, but you get him on a fairly cheap deal for one season. As long as he can hold on to the football, this is somebody who's going to be really good in this system. The Ravens rotate backs. They normally run 3 backs throughout the season. Melvin Gordon, he should get at least 100 carries, and he could end up being somebody who could be a little bit of an underrated pickup for the Ravens. So let me know what you guys are thinking about this signing down in the comment section down below. Now, Colin Cowherd, I got a lot of respect for him, but he took some shots at Justin Fields, and he called him the big 4-letter word, and that is a bust. And I think that he's completely wrong about how he views Justin Fields. He said that he's 5-20 as a starter. He was on a 10-game losing streak at one point. He has a passer rating in the 70s. Right now, he is a YouTube quarterback. His highlights are great. Right now, Justin Fields is a bust. And this is why I disagree with Colin Cowherd on this, because I watched this live and I remember when he said this. He left out the fact that Justin Fields didn't have any good receivers last year. Darnell Mooney, he didn't play the whole entire season. Chase Claypool didn't do anything. He was a dud. The Steelers are really good at developing and finding good talent at wide receiver. If they want to trade you a wide receiver, it's probably because that dude isn't that good. He was throwing the guys such as Equanimeous St. Brown and Dante Pettis. Dante freaking Pettis. Colin Cowherd, you remember Dante Pettis, but not from anything that he's done in the NFL. You probably remember him from what he did in college. So Justin Fields was throwing to Equanimeous St. Brown, Dante Pettis, when Darnell Mooney goes down. And even when they did have Darnell Mooney, you know that Darnell Mooney isn't a true number 1 option. He's just a really good Robin. He's not a Batman. Justin Fields wasn't really given a good offensive line either. He was tied for being the most sacked quarterback in the league last year with Russell Wilson. Justin Fields, the only thing he really could do was run the football at a really high level. The Chicago Bears didn't want to throw the football, not because they didn't trust Justin Fields as a passer, but it's because who the hell was he going to throw the football to? You expect Justin Fields to be able to have a great passer rating when he has arguably the worst receiving core in the NFL last season, behind one of the worst offensive lines, if not the worst offensive line in the league last year? How is he ever going to have time to be able to throw the football enough to be able to effectively show you that he's a good passer? Justin Fields, for him to be able to take the steps as a passer like Jalen Hurts and Lamar, he needs better protection up front. That's simple. Any of the best young quarterbacks in the game right now have great receivers and a decent offensive line. And if they don't have both, they have one or the other. Jalen Hurts had both. Joe Burrow, yeah, he hasn't had a good offensive line, but he's had great receivers ever since he stepped into the league. Lamar Jackson went to the Baltimore Ravens, a fantastic organization that built the offense around him, and he also had really good offensive lines. Justin Fields hasn't been awarded an equal opportunity compared to some of the other quarterbacks in the game that we consider to be better than him. The Chicago Bears this season have a way better team around Justin Fields. I think it's way too early to be giving Justin Fields the bust label. He was learning a new system last year. He had to get used to learning another playbook. The key to young quarterbacks being successful is being able to have stability on the coaching staff. You saw what happened to Mac Jones last year when Josh McDaniels left. Justin Fields is going into year 2 under Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy's system. He has a proven number 1 wide receiver and DJ Moore. You're also going to have a healthy Darnell Mooney and whoever else you have step up as your third receiver. And you got Cole Kmet, who is a pretty decent tight end. Your run game's going to be really good. The offensive line should be improved. Tevin Jenkins was pretty solid at offensive guard. You got a really decent left tackle. And you also drafted Darnell Wright, who I thought was the best tackle coming out of this past year's draft. This is a really good, solid supporting cast that the Bears have given Justin Fields. So I think this is the year that should be the make or break year for Justin Fields. There's no more excuses. He's going to be more comfortable in the system, better receivers, better supporting cast. So if you're going to call Justin Fields a bust, Colin Cowherd, I probably think that this would be a good year to be able to get a good tell of what Justin Fields is as far as him being an NFL quarterback. But Colin, for you to call Justin Fields a bust, I think is way too early in his career, and I have to strongly disagree with you on your take that he's a bust. You got to remember that he had the worst receiving core in the NFL, especially with Darnell Mooney getting injured, Equanimeous St. Brown, Dante Pettis. Those guys wouldn't even be wide receiver threes on the majority of teams in the NFL. If one of those guys have to start for you at receiver, you're in trouble. Why would the Chicago Bears want to have Justin Fields throwing the football 30 plus times a game when he's throwing to the worst receivers in the NFL? He also was behind the worst offensive line in the NFL last season. He was tied for being the most sacked quarterback in the league last year, Colin. You expect this dude to turn glitter to gold behind the worst offensive line in the league, throwing to guys like Dante Pettis and Equanimeous St. Brown? What are your expectations? No other young quarterback has been able to be successful with at least having a good receiving core or a good offensive line. Joe Burrow has great receivers. So did Jalen Hurts in a great offensive line. Justin Herbert has not been given what some of the better quarterbacks in the game have been given. He's been given doo-doo. And if you watched any of the Bears games last season, the majority of the reason why they had opportunities to win those one possession games was because of Justin Fields. Justin Fields was the Chicago Bears. You want to know why he had to make all those highlight reel plays? Why he had to make all those highlight reel runs? Because the offensive line sucked. That's why he had to run. Justin Timothy Fields this year is going to show y'all this season. I promise y'all. Please keep sleeping on Justin Fields. Because when he ends up going off this season, I can't wait to see how you guys start trying to flip-flop, being like, oh yeah, like I knew it was a chance. No. I think this is the make or break year that should be the deciding factor on what Justin Fields is. The Madden 24 quarterback rankings or ratings have been released, and like always, they're god Yo, okay, now we got the audio back. All right. So we got to go back and redo the segment over. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. The Madden 24 quarterback ratings have been released. And like every single year, they're awful. They were awful last year, and they are once again awful this year, man. So look at this. Patrick Mahomes is a 99 overall. Highest rated quarterback in this year's game. No problem with that. Joe Burrow has a 95 overall. He should at least be a 97. Joe Burrow, without a doubt, is the second best quarterback in the NFL. And the difference between Patrick Mahomes, there's a gap, but it's not a big mountain. Joe Burrow needs to be at least a 97 overall. Josh Allen, I think he should at least be a 96 overall. Even though he had all those turnover issues, Josh Allen still is him. He's still the third best quarterback in the league right now. But, I mean, that's just me being a little bit picky. They got the top 3 right. I don't think the ratings are too bad. But this is where I really start to get blowed. Lamar Jackson, 91 overall, after he's missed the second half of the last 2 seasons for the Baltimore Ravens. You have to punish him for that. His rating has to drop for not being able to play for the second half of the last couple of years. And plus, he has regressed statistically. Ever since his MVP year, his numbers have got worse and worse. Now, I'm not saying Lamar Jackson is a bad quarterback, but I'm just saying in terms of his Madden rating, it needs to be bumped down under a 90. You can give him an 89 or an 88, but he shouldn't be a 91 overall. That's just a little bit too high for a guy who hasn't been able to stay healthy during the most important part of the NFL season. And plus, he's regressed statistically. Now, when he bounces back this year, then you can start bopping up his overall a couple of notches. I think he probably will end up with a 97 overall or a 96 overall by the end of this year, because I think he's going to have an MVP season with Todd Monken being their new OC. Now, Jalen Hurts, I think this was really disrespectful. Do you know who was the runner-up behind Patrick Mahomes for MVP this year? Jalen Hurts should at least be a 90 overall. He should have even been considered for being on the cover of this year's game. Jalen Hurts had a fantastic season. I don't think Jalen Hurts deserved to be an 88. He should at least be a 90. You could have at least given Jalen Hurts a 90 overall. He's one of the best deep ball passers in the league, in my opinion. He throws really fantastic outside of the numbers. His deep accuracy better be an 88 or an 89. Then you got Justin Herbert at 87. Man, I don't think I'm going to get too mad at that one. Even though I probably would give him an 89. I can't give Justin Herbert a 90 simply because of what happened in that playoff game. Not saying it was all his fault, but I just can't give him a 90. I can't give him a 90. I got to give him an 89 at best, but I don't think 87 is too bad. Dak Prescott, fam, 87? Stop it. Stop it. Dak Prescott? Dak Prescott. So if I'm seeing this correctly, they have Dak Prescott as a top 5, top 10-ish quarterback? No way. Absolutely no way. I'm literally seeing this right now with my own 2 eyes. Dak Prescott? 87 overall? They have this man as a top 10 QB. Oh, they got these ratings all wrong. They got these ratings all wrong. There's no reason why Dak Prescott should be rated this high. You got to remember that, yeah, Dak Prescott is a solid QB, but he's one of those 85 overall quarterbacks. He's one of those QBs that should always be somewhere around 84, 85 overall. I can't believe they let Dak Prescott be rated this high in this year's game. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They got this man that's the 7th best quarterback. Oh my goodness, who is in charge of making these ratings? Because they got to stop it. Aaron Rodgers at an 86? I don't know how I feel about that. I really don't, because if you're going to punish Aaron Rodgers for having one down year, you got to keep that same energy with Lamar Jackson. Aaron Rodgers won back-to-back MVPs a year ago. Lamar Jackson hasn't had a season anywhere close his last couple of years to his MVP year. There's no way you're going to let Lamar Jackson slide with that and keep him at a 91 overall, but you're going to drastically punish Aaron Rodgers and give him an 86. You're going to rate Dak Prescott higher than Aaron Rodgers when he owns the Cowboys? I don't know about this. I don't know about this one. I think you at least got to give Aaron Rodgers a 90 out of respect. You do. Because even when Tom Brady had left New England and he went to the Bucs, they still respected him. So I think out of respect for Aaron Rodgers and his greatness and what he's done throughout his career, despite one down year, this dude won back-to-back MVPs, but yet Lamar Jackson still gets to be rated a 91? Despite the fact that he's missed the second half of the previous 2 years and he's regressed statistically? Come on, EA. What's wrong with y'all? What y'all doing up in there? There's no way. Absolutely no way they just put Dak Prescott ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Wow. Oh my God. The audacity is at an all-time high for EA. Not only do they got the nerve to continually put out a bad game year after year, but they have the audacity to put Dak Prescott ahead of Aaron Rodgers. They got to stop this madness, man. They got to stop this madness. Kirk Cousins at an 84. On the low, I feel like Kirk Cousins should at least be an 86. He should at least be an 86. Let's not act like Kirk Cousins wasn't snapping last year for Minnesota. I feel like he is one of those 85-ish QBs, 84-ish. But I do feel like you should at least have Kirk Cousins at an 85. 86. Now, Tua at an 83. I feel like Tua should at least be a 86. At least you could at least give Tua an 86. I mean, yeah, you got to penalize him for missing a couple of games with injury, but remember, you got Lamar Jackson at a 91 overall, despite the fact that he's missed the second half of the previous 2 seasons back to back. And he's regressed statistically since his MVP season, but Tua's at an 83? You could have at least given Tua a 85. 83, I feel like that stands for average. 84, 85, I feel like that's pretty good. But they got this all wrong, man. Like, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, they're cool, but I mean, technically, you could put anybody here at number 4, honestly. But me personally, based off last season, I probably would have given Justin Herbert the 89, and I would have slid him up here. Or maybe Jalen Hurts slides in at number 4 over Justin Herbert. But I don't think you can have Dak Prescott over Aaron Rodgers or even over Tua, just off of respect for what Aaron Rodgers has done over his career. This dude won back-to-back MVPs prior to last season. Now, we look at 11 through 20, they get even worse. Justin Fields at a 76? Show some respect. Justin Fields carried the Chicago Bears last season. And he was the best quarterback in fantasy football last year. You should have at least given Justin Fields at least an 81 or an 82. You could have at least given him an 81 or an 82. At least an 81 or an 82. Now, Ryan Tannehill at 76 overall, you could have given him an 80. Ryan Tannehill isn't boo-boo. Okay, Ryan Tannehill is the definition of a solid quarterback. He's a top 15 QB still, in my opinion, when he's healthy. And yeah, he's getting old, and he probably is going to regress this year, but the season hasn't started yet, so you should at least give Ryan Tannehill an 80. Russell Wilson, 77 overall. Yeah, like, I feel like you got to give Russell Wilson a 77 overall. Like, I know it was one down season, but oh my God. Shit hit the fan in Denver last season. Like, Russell Wilson was, ew. Yeah, like, you got to get Russell Wilson to 77. Like, he got to redeem himself. Jimmy Garoppolo, 77. I probably will give him a 76, personally. Even though he wasn't bad last year for San Francisco, I just think he's mid. I feel like a 76 overall for him is mid. And that's what he is as a QB. Now, a 78 for Derek Carr, I feel like, honestly, I think this is probably their second or third most accurate rating that they've given out when it comes to quarterbacks outside of Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Personally, Derek Carr at a 78, I think that's chilling. Y'all think that's chilling? I think that's chilling. 78 overall for Derek Carr, I think that's okay. I think Derek Carr probably deserves a 78. Kyler Murray at 79. Honestly, I feel like you got to give Kyler Murray a 81. I would have given Kyler Murray a 81, but them giving a 79 rating is one of those ratings that, you know, I'm not going to get too mad over because I understand. All right, I understand. But I'm not going to penalize him for playing most of last year and getting injured late in the season. And even though he wasn't great last season, Kyler Murray still is a really good QB. I mean, if we're going off, you know, what he's done, he's gotten better every single season. So it's like, you know, last year was a down year for him, but it's just one down season. I would at least have given him an 81. Now, Deshaun Watson at a 78. You know, I feel like that's fair. Okay, I feel like they got that one right. And here's why. Yeah, I feel like they got that one right. And this is why I feel like they got that one right. Deshaun Watson, you got to remember that he was out of football for a while and he came back and he was rusty. So 78 for him, I think, is fair. Jared Goff at an 80. Jared Goff at an 80. I feel like you at least got to give Jared Goff a 81 like Geno Smith. I feel like they're on the same tier. And Geno Smith, honestly, like, if you was going to give anybody a lower rating than what they should have gotten, it probably should have been Geno Smith. You probably could have slept on Geno Smith again, just in my opinion. Okay, Jared Goff was really good, but you got to remember Geno Smith had one great season. If you're going to sleep on Tua, then you got to sleep on Geno Smith a little bit. You could have at least given him what you gave Jared Goff at 80. All right, now Jared Goff, like, if you keep Geno Smith at an 80, I'm cool with Jared Goff staying at 80. But if you're going to give Geno Smith 81 or anything higher, Jared Goff should have the same rating. You got to remember that the second half of last season, Jared Goff threw no interceptions. He had a 14-0 touchdown interception ratio. Jared Goff was arguably a fringe top 10 quarterback at the end of last year. Him and that offense, with that offensive coordinator that they got, is scary. Real scary. And when Jameson Williams comes back, it's going to get deadly. It's going to get terrorizing. Now, Trevor Lawrence at an 82. It's like, if Jalen Hurts made that big of a leap in one season, I think you at least got to give Trevor Lawrence an 85. Trevor Lawrence is in ascension mode. It's like Tua is at an 83. Trevor Lawrence should be at an 85. Trevor Lawrence was on demon mode at the end of last year. Trevor Lawrence, I feel like you got to give him an 85. Just out of respect for what he was able to do with a legitimate situation. So these are my reactions and my thoughts on the Madden 24 quarterback ratings. Let me know which ones would you change? Which ones do you agree with, disagree with, down in the comment section down below. Before we move on to our next couple of segments, I got to get me a drink of water. I can't believe they did Aaron Rodgers like that, man. They're going to give him an 86 overall, put him beneath Dak Prescott. That's really disrespectful. That's one of the most disrespectful things that I have seen this year. Not even lying to y'all. You really going to give Aaron Rodgers a 86 behind Dak? Come on, man. Let's not act like Aaron Rodgers wasn't a back-to-back MVP winner prior to one bad season. Come on, man. Like, I feel like we got to show a little bit more respect to Aaron Rodgers. That was incredibly disrespectful by EA. I feel like that was probably the most disrespectful rating that they gave out with the quarterbacks. The Kansas City Chiefs, one of their biggest questions going into this season is who is going to step up at wide receiver. Now, you have Marquez Valdes-Scantling coming back. He was third on your team in receiving yards last year, and he's a really good deep threat. So his spot is pretty solidified, but you lost Juju Smith-Schuster, who was really productive in the slot for you. So who's going to replace him and step up? So we're going to be discussing which wide receiver will step up for the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming season. Now, they have a lot of talent in the receiving room, so let's not make it seem like the Kansas City Chiefs are just in dire need of a wide receiver, because they have talent in this receiver room. They just don't know who are going to be the guys to be the most consistent and who's going to give them the most production this year. Now, I really am a big fan of Kadarius Toney, and I was a big fan of him coming out of Florida a couple of years ago. And you got to remember that the only problem with Kadarius Toney is that you don't know how healthy he's going to be able to stay throughout the 17-game regular season. But when he was on the field and healthy for the New York Giants, he was that dude. He was him. You got to remember that he broke the New York Jets single-game receiving yardage record for a rookie wideout. And he is really electric after the catch. I mean, this dude is the definition of a human joystick. He's like a ping pong ball. He can change directions. He can kind of be a little bit underrated when it comes to being able to break out of tackles. He's not just all speed and elusive. Like, he also is a little bit stronger than what you may think. And I think he's a pretty solid route runner. So Kadarius Toney is a serious breakout candidate for the Kansas City Chiefs at wide receiver this year. You got Skyy Moore. I still think that Skyy Moore has a little bit more work to do. He did a pretty solid job throughout his rookie season. He was really good after the catch for Kansas City. But my thing is, I don't really think he creates a lot of separation on his routes. I feel like when he gets severely open, it's due to him being schemed open. But I'm not sleeping on Skyy Moore. You feel me? Like, I do think that Skyy Moore could end up having a really solid season. But I think that in terms of higher upside between Kadarius Toney and Skyy Moore, I gotta go Kadarius Toney. Now, you signed Rashee James in free agency. Now, this was a little bit of an underrated signing. And I'm going to tell you why. If you watched the New York Giants last year, Rashee James was probably their most talented receiver last season. Honestly, in my opinion. I think that he's a really solid route runner. I also think that, you know, the New York Giants in some situations, you know, kind of could have did a little bit more with him. And I also like the fact that he's going to Kansas City with Andy Reid. He's going to find a way to get Rashee James involved, because last season for the Giants, he was pretty productive. 4 touchdowns, 57 receptions, 569 receiving yards. He was averaging 10 yards per catch. And with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, I feel like he's going to be able to get the most out of a Rashee James. So I think Rashee James is pretty talented. And I think he's more talented than Skyy Moore, in my opinion. So we're going to see how that ends up playing out throughout training camp and into the regular season. I think Rashee James was a really sneaky signing by Kansas City. Justin Ross. Haven't really been hearing a lot of Justin Ross hype this offseason. The hype for Justin Ross was real when he ended up signing as an undrafted free agent. This was somebody who a couple of years ago was expected to be a first-round pick. He has first-round talent, but he went undrafted due to medical concerns. So, last season, he was doing pretty well, OTAs, and then he ended up having to miss out on the regular season last year. He had an injury that pretty much sidelined him all last year. So this is really going to be his first truly healthy season when he's going to be able to show what he can do on the field. And I think he not only is going to make the roster, but he potentially could be a wide receiver 3 or 4 in this offense. He probably could be right behind MVS because I think that Justin Ross is a really good deep threat. Really athletic, good body control. Rashee Rice, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Kansas City drafted him in this past year's NFL draft. Like Justin Ross, big body wide receiver. I think that he could end up being a really good deep threat for Kansas City as well. And he is pretty talented. I'm eager to see what happens with Rashee Rice. Honestly. This was somebody who was a little bit underrated coming out of SMU, even though I felt like he was a little bit overvalued by the mock draft community. I still do think that there is a lot of upside with Rashee Rice. So I am keeping my eyes on him. But I am a little bit biased towards Justin Ross just because of what he's had to overcome. So I am rooting for him. But I do think that Richie James was a really underrated pickup. Really underrated pickup. He was the New York Giants' best receiver last year. So I'm going to go with Kadarius Toney and Richie James to be the guys who step up at wide receiver for Kansas City this year. Richie James was a really sneaky good pickup for them, and I don't think they're paying him all too much. Skyy Moore, I'm not low on him. It's just that I think Richie James and Kadarius Toney are a little bit more talented. And maybe we could see Justin Ross step up. I asked you guys last night, should the Arizona Cardinals trade Kyler Murray and draft Caleb Williams, or should they keep Kyler Murray and build around him? And the way you guys responded to this poll, there were 348 of you guys who voted. 63% of you guys said they should tank for Caleb and trade Kyler. Only 37% said keep Kyler Murray. And this is pretty much how I feel about it. Honestly, I just feel Kyler Murray could probably use a fresh start. New coaching staff. He's coming back from an injury that he may not be the same player that he was before it. And Kyler Murray isn't one of those players that you can just plug and play into any kind of offense. He has a very unique skill set. He is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the game, but he does have limitations that you have to scheme around. And Arizona with a new coaching staff, I just think that it would be too much having to adjust and having to build a scheme around a guy like Kyler Murray's skill set. Plus, you don't know how he's going to be post-injury, ACL injury at that. I'd rather take my chances on Caleb Williams. Now, for those of you guys who are like, oh, JT, you doubting Kyler Murray, you got to remember that Kyler Murray isn't able to throw from inside of the pocket effectively. A lot of his game is off improvising, using his legs to extend plays, pick up big gains in the run game with his ability to be super athletic in the open field, really agile, really shifty. So with him coming off that ACL injury, he probably is going to lose a tad bit of that athleticism. Everybody always says that you're not the same player that you was after an ACL injury. You look at Caleb Williams, he's going to be healthy, and his film is really equivalent to Patrick Mahomes. The only difference is that he's a more refined version of Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have all of the technicalities that Patrick Mahomes had to work out with when he was coming out of Texas Tech. And Lincoln Riley has been really good at getting quarterbacks into the NFL. Caleb Williams going to the Arizona Cardinals, you'll be getting a QB who you don't have to worry about the same character issues that Kyler Murray currently has. You're also going to have a clean slate at QB. You're a new GM, Monte Austinford. And then your new head coach, Jonathan Gannon. This is going to be the guys who you guys handpick to lead your franchise. And he's one of those quarterbacks that you can just look at and know that he's going to figure it out. You know that he's just going to be him. Caleb Williams is a generational quarterback, and I know that term kind of gets thrown out a little bit too loosely, but it's the honest truth. You're not going to find a lot of quarterbacks that have the kind of skill set that Caleb Williams has that's just so refined. He's able to get outside the pocket. He can make all kinds of throws, all platform. He has a fantastic arm. He's a very great runner. He's kind of a little bit like how Jalen Hurts is. He's not one of those finesse runners, but he's a really powerful runner. He's also really compact as well. He's really big, so he can be able to take the hits that, start to build up over time throughout the NFL season. Caleb Williams, he's one of those. He really is. If you're one of those people who doubt Caleb Williams, please go watch some film, because he's one of those Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence QBs who should be able to succeed unless you just have a dodo brain at head coach. Kyler Murray, you just don't know if he's going to be that same QB. And honestly, I really would love to see Kyler Murray in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. I really would. And me personally, I really want to see him with the Rams, but there's no way the Cardinals are going to trade him within the division. But if he can't go to the Rams, I want to see him on the Vikings. He would be a really good addition to that offense. Kevin O'Connell is a really good offensive mind, and Kirk Cousins, it probably looks like they're going to move on from him when his contract is up. I would love to see Kyler Murray in Minnesota. I just think for the Arizona Cardinals, having a new coaching staff, you're not really going to have a good team. So you're not even going to have the opportunity to fairly evaluate Kyler Murray anyway. Plus, you're going to have a chance to reset. You are going to trade him. Even if you do trade his contract, you probably still are going to have to take a little bit of that to the chin. But you'll have Caleb Williams on a cheap rookie contract for the next 4 to 5 years. And Caleb Williams is one of those quarterbacks that he's so talented that not only is he going to come in and produce right away, but the potential is also up there as well for him to be a top 5 quarterback in the game. So you're going to have that on the young contract. You're also going to have some additional high draft picks like the one that you are potentially going to get from the Houston Texans that could be a top 10 pick, top 5 selection. You could trade that, get more picks. And then also, you can trade Kyler Murray and get a first round for Kyler Murray. I still think that despite the character issues and the ACL injury, he's still worth a first round pick. Now, you got to remember that a first round pick for Kyler Murray isn't too much. Going with the fact that this is somebody who still is a Pro Bowl caliber QB, still has really elite talent. He may not be the same QB that he once was prior to that ACL injury, but he still is going to be good enough to be a top 10 quarterback. And you're not going to be giving up a big haul for Kyler Murray. You got to remember that I only said 1 first round pick. Russell Wilson got traded for multiple firsts. And if you're trading for any quarterback in the game that's as good or nearly as good as what Kyler Murray is, you're going to have to give up at least 2 or more first rounders. Kyler Murray is a really good quarterback when he's healthy. And even though you have some concerns, you probably can still get a first rounder for him. So Arizona, they won't be able to get a haul for Kyler Murray, but they could at least get a first round pick for Kyler Murray from a team like Minnesota. And I'm pretty sure there are teams that are willing to give up a first round pick for Kyler Murray despite the character concerns and the injury concerns. Because you just look at the talent, and if you have an offensive minded coach, they look at Kyler Murray, they're like, oh yeah, give me him. Give me him and I'll do some damage. Hell, keep an eye on the Denver Broncos maybe. Well, I don't know if Sean Payton would want to coach that, but just keep an eye on teams like the Raiders and stuff who may be looking at a quick fix at the quarterback position. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure, if you haven't already, that you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Rate us 5 stars, Apple, Spotify. If you enjoyed this episode, we are trying to get to 100 5-star reviews before the season ends. So if you want to support us and support the channel, give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would greatly appreciate it. And remember that you can't just listen to this podcast on YouTube. You also got to listen to it on all of the audio platforms as well. If you want to listen to it without having to download YouTube Premium and play it in your car on your ride home from work, go ahead and get on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, wherever you get your podcasts from, and download and subscribe to the JT Sports Podcast on there. And I appreciate you guys for tuning into this episode